on YouTube, shake my hand. On Spotify, shake my hand. Hope you guys are all doing well. As you guys know, we are currently doing How to Attract Money by Joseph, Dr. Joseph Murphy. It's quite a very short book. You blink twice, you snooze, you lose. We are actually going to finish the book today, right? So today, this I chose it as a very good introduction to the way the man thinks, right? So you can see the man has a very, very, very strong religious background, right? He did study quite a bit. The book is divided into three chapters. Chapter one is, which is what we did yesterday in the previous episode, episode 30, Your Right to Be Rich. Today we're going to be looking at the roads to riches, which is kind of like, you know, it touched on just a little bit yesterday. So he's going to be building up on that in today's chapter. And then the last section of the book is just about Dr. Joseph Murphy, about his life. And I think I did kind of like give you guys a little bit of sound bites around that. He was brought up in a strict Catholic household. His father was quite devout, and then he joined his father was actually one of the few lay of professors who taught Jesuit seminars, so very deep biblical stuff, essentially. He had a broad knowledge of many subjects, etc., etc. So then Dr. Joseph was kind of like born in that house. Then he enrolled to the national school. He was a brilliant scholar. And then he began to question Catholic orthodoxy of Jesuits, right? So he started like trying to draw his own lessons, his own life lessons. So he withdrew from the path that his father was taking. Just giving you guys a quick summary. And then he immigrated, etc., etc. And then when he immigrated, he worked, like I said yesterday, for a pharmaceutical, like just a pharmacy, sweeping floors. And then he quickly like leveled up in there until he actually went to study pharmacy. All right, he had just had this keen desire to learn. Then he became a fully fledged pharmacist. And then he made his own money. He ran a couple of businesses. And when he entered the United States in World War II, he enlisted in the army, by the way, and he was assigned to work as a pharmacist in the medical unit. I think it was the 88th Infantry Division. They got some award if you follow the war stuff. Right then, from his studies, he became enraptured by the various Asian religions and went to India to learn about them, etc., etc. So he just kept studying, his version of what he thought was out there. And then he was most influenced by Dr. Thomas Truewood, who was a judge at that time. And that's important because sometimes the people who mentor you generally have a good impact on your forecast. So that judge then kind of like, really, really introduced him to a lot of things, particularly the Masonic order. Masonic Masons are these families that if you're a Mason, if you're a Freemason, basically, and you successfully join the Freemasonry and you pass those levels, you get the prime knowledge of the world, the truest parts of knowledge, not what we're fed in media. It's like I'm absolutely very much engaged with people from a Masonic order. He went all the way up to level 32. You remember Napoleon Hill? I told you guys this as well. That Napoleon Hill, his first book, Before Think and Grow Rich, which was the actual true secrets, was shut down by members of a Masonic order, specifically Henry Ford, right, who thought that these secrets, right, should only be reserved for a select few. And Napoleon Hill wanted to share it with the world. We have that book for the podcast, that secret book that was removed. And a lot of people have the watered down version, which is still good. Think and Grow Rich is still good, but it is a watered down version of Napoleon Hill's original text. And we have that for the podcast. I'm just waiting for it to be shipped to Africa, but the purchase has been made. All right. So when he rose in the higher ranks of the Masonic ranks to the 32nd degree, right, that's when everything changed for Dr. Joseph Murphy. Murphy became a minister, and he applied his broad knowledge, and his concept of Christianity was not traditional and indeed a counter to most of the Catholic Christian dominations of the time, etc., etc. And then he was, prominent for what they called the New Thought movement. So this is like back in the late 19th to early 20th centuries, etc., etc. I'm just gonna skip through all of this other stuff because at some point in time he goes back, right? And he does his PhD in psychology. And then he started to sell his seminar tapes, and then people were like, no man, this is too good, make it into a book. And he started writing, and by the 1950s there were very few like major publishers of this type of work. And so it grew, basically Murphy grew, right? So today we're going to be looking at chapter 2, The Road to Riches, which is the last chapter of this book, outside of the first 3 or 4 pages I've just summarized for you of how Dr. Joseph Murphy became who he is. We'll be looking at a lot of his other work in the podcast as we keep going. But right now, I want us to just quickly finish this book, How to Attract Money. And maybe I know we've spent a lot of time, more than usual, in this episode's introduction, but just to keep us very grounded, I think it's important we quickly reflect on everything that we learned yesterday in the previous episode, episode 30. Right. So when he starts chapter 1 in the book, drawing very similar strands of arguments and very similar strands of pieces of information we've gotten from the previous books. So from science of getting rich, I'm literally seeing a beautiful parallel, between the two, and a lot of it also from Ken Honda's book, Riches. The Richest Man of Babylon was actually much more practical with what to do with your money. We are now back and really where I want us to be. We need to do the practical stuff, which is money IQ, but we also need very good money EQ. And a lot of your money EQ starts with your conceptualization of stuff in your mind, right? So he really does a good job in chapter 1 about bringing that to the forefront. Lesson number 1: wealth is forever flowing freely in my life, right? That's important. You have to tell yourself that. You have to almost know that you believe it, and there are many ways to do it. He specifically says one must develop a welfare state of consciousness, right? A welfare state of consciousness. And that specifically to him, and I hope to us by now, means it is a mind conditioned to divine supply forever flowing. So it is a mind that believes the supply is unlimited. The supply is unlimited, and you trust it tirelessly, that the flow doesn't stop. How do you do this? And I really want to quickly get through this, quick summary. You have to impress your subconscious mind with the idea of a constant supply of wealth. So we spoke about this, right? And then immediately gets into, he doesn't call it how to visualize, but this is literally how to visualize. And visualization is one of the most impactful tools to reprogram your subconscious mind. So he tells you, relax, quiet down the wheels, immobilize, the attention, get into a sleepy state, a meditative state of the mind, reduce that effort. You can do it before you go to sleep, right? At some point in time, after you've done it for a month before you go to sleep, you will now know what that spot is, that perfect spot to visualize. Then you need to start doing about 5 to 3 times a day. I told you guys yesterday, look up mindfulness techniques. Watch a couple of videos around being mindful. This will help. And then you ask yourself a series of questions. Where do ideas come from? Where does wealth come from? Etc., etc. And you'll soon realize that wealth is a state of mind. And then he did give us a few things to repeat to ourselves, like money is forever circulating freely in my life, and there is always a divine supply. More importantly, he did address a situation where if you're currently not in a position to have money right now, so if you're AKA broke, if you're AKA struggling, it is almost disastrous to have affirmations that say, I am rich, I am prosperous, I am happy, I am happy, I am wealthy, I am wealthy. Because the subconscious mind isn't stupid. The subconscious mind understands the reality and does not believe what you're saying. So Murphy's argument is you should avoid having two conflicting, dominating ideas or feelings. That is to say, if the subconscious mind understands you're broke and you look broke and your life is broke, just shouting, I am prosperous, etc., etc., actually creates a deeper sense of lack, right? Because the feeling of lack becomes dominant because you are creating almost a paradox into your mind. Rather, you need to engage in the cooperation with your subconscious mind by saying something different, saying stuff like, I am prospering every day. I am growing in wealth and in wisdom every day. Because you're actually attending the podcast, you're growing in knowledge every day on how to become wealthy every day. Every day, my wealth is multiplying. And that alone allows there to be less statements in the mind that create conflict, right? So that's kind of like a summary of one of the biggest key points that I took from yesterday's reading. All right, it's fundamentally important, guys, because this is not just a summary. I'm bringing this up because this is the stuff you should be practicing every day right now, right? You should have affirmations every day, right? But your affirmations have to be very, crafted in a way that creates cooperation in your mind with your everyday life to get you towards your goal. All right. So I hope people are taking this seriously. Right. So now, chapter 2, Roads to Riches, as I read. Riches are of the mind. Riches are of the mind. Now, let us suppose for a moment that a physician diploma was stolen together with his office equipment. I'm sure you would agree that his wealth was in his mind. He could still carry on to diagnose disease and prescribe and operate and lecture on medicine. Only his symbols were stolen. He could always get additional supplies. His riches were in mental capacity, knowledge to help others, and his ability to contribute to humanity in general. You'll always be wealthy when you have an intense desire to contribute the good of mankind. Your urge for service, to give of your talents to the world, will always find a response in the heart of the universe. Okay? You'll always be rich if you're willing to help. I knew a man in New York during the financial crisis of 1929 who lost everything he had during his home and all of his life savings. I met him after a lecture which I'd given at one of the hotels in the city. This was what he said: I lost everything. I made $1 million in 4 years. I'll make it again. All I have lost is a symbol. I can again attract the symbol of wealth in the same way that honey attracts flies. I followed the career of this man for several years to discover the key to his success. The key may seem strange to you, yet it is a very old one. The name he gave the key was change water into wine. He read this passage in the Bible and he knew it was the answer to perfect health, happiness, peace of mind, and prosperity. Wine in the Bible always means the realization of your desires, urges, plans, dreams, propositions. In other words, it is the things you wish to accomplish, achieve, and bring forth. Water in the Bible usually refers to your mind or consciousness. Water takes shape of any vessel into which it is poured. Likewise, whatever you feel and believe is true, you will become manifest in your world. Thus, you're always changing water into wine. The Bible was written by enlightened men. It teaches practical everyday psychology and a way of life. One of the cardinal tenets of the Bible is that you determine, mold, fashion, and shape your own destiny through right thought, feeling, and beliefs. It teaches you that you can solve any problem, overcome any situation, and that you are born to succeed, to win, and to triumph in order to discover the royal road to riches and receive the strength and security necessary to advance in life. You must cease viewing the Bible in the traditional way. The above man, while in financial crisis, used to say to himself frequently, during the days when he was without funds, I can change water into wine. These words meant to him, I can change the poverty ideas in my mind for the realization of my present desires or needs, which are wealth and financial supply. His mental attitude, in brackets, water, was once I made a fortune honestly, I'll make it again, wine. His regular affirmation consisted of I attracted the symbol, which was money, once. I am attracting it again. I know this and I feel it is true. Wine. This is, yeah, fascinating. This man went to work as a salesman for a chemical organization. The ideas for the better promotion of their products came to him. He passed them on to his organization. It was not long until he became the vice president. Within 4 years, the company made him president. His constant mental attitude was, I changed water into wine. I look upon the story in John of changing water into wine in a figurative way, and say to yourself, as the above mentioned chemical salesman did, I can make the invisible ideas, urges, dreams, and desires of mine visible because I have discovered a simple universal law of mind. The law he demonstrated is the law of action and reaction, right? And I'll remind you, we did bring this up yesterday. These laws, you have to. I think I'm gonna bring the book Humanetics later on into the podcast because I really think a lot of people don't actually understand our universal laws. Universal laws, guys, are actually principles that cannot be broken, like the law of gravity, right? And once you understand that, it is almost impossible to become prosperous, wealthy, without necessarily following consciously or unconsciously these particular laws. So the law of action and reaction is what is being brought up and mapped out as the royal road to riches. This idea that your mental attitude is like water, right? Water, Bruce Lee had this interview where he said, take the form of water. Water takes the shape of anything. You put water into a cup, it's shaped like a cup. You put it into a pool, it's shaped like a pool because water is flow. Ken Wonder said you need to focus on your flow, right? Because money will always flow in and flow out, but how you manage your flow is important. In chapter one, I think this author also talked about look at the tide of the sea, right? All these guys keep emphasizing the flow. The tide surely can withdraw, but it always comes back. And now he's saying, well, when it comes to the law of action, your mental attitude, water slash your flow, right, is the first thing you need to work on because if your flow is regularly affirmed, for example, the salesman's affirmation was, I attracted the symbol of money once. I'm attracting it again, right? So I attracted the symbol of money once. That's his flow, right? And I'm attracting it again. I know this and I feel it is true, right? Wine, what he wants, his intentions, wealth, possessions, etc., etc. Now I'll continue reading. The law he demonstrated in this law of action and reaction, it means your external world, body circumstances, environment, and financial status are always a perfect reflection of your inner thinking. Oh, sorry, excuse me. The law he demonstrated is the law of action and reaction. It means your external world, body, circumstances, environment, and financial status are a perfect reflection of your inner thinking, beliefs, feelings, and convictions. And I think I've almost opened every podcast episode with that. You only know what you know. You are where you are based on how you've been thinking so far. So your external world, your body, your weight gain, your weight loss, your circumstances, your life choices, your environment, your financial status are always a perfect reflection of your inner thinking, feelings, and convictions. This being true, you can now change your inner pattern of thought by dwelling on the ideas of success, wealth, peace of mind. As you busy your mind with these later concepts, these ideas will gradually seep into your mentality like seeds planted in the ground. As all seeds, thoughts and ideas grow after their kind, so will your habitual thinking and feeling manifest in prosperity, success, and peace of mind. Wise thought, which is action, is followed by right action, which is reaction. Right. You can acquire riches when you become aware of the fact that prayer is a marriage feast. The first is a psychological one. You meditate on mentally eat off. So a lot of these things are in brackets. I don't even know how to read them. So I'll read that line again. I really want you to get this. You can acquire riches when you become aware of the fact that prayer is a marriage feast. The first is a psychological one. You meditate on your good or your desire until you become one with it, right? So the feast is a psychological one. You meditate on your good or your desire until you become one with it. I will now cite a case history from my files relating to how a young girl performed her first miracle in transforming water into wine. She operated a very beautiful hair salon. Her mother became ill and she had to devote considerable time at home, neglecting her business. During her absence, two of her assistants embezzled funds. She was forced into bankruptcy, lost her home, and found herself deeply in debt. She was unable to pay hospital bills for her mother, and she was now unemployed. I explained to this woman the magic formula of changing water to wine. Again, we made it clear to her that wine means answered prayer, or the materialization of her ideal. She was quarreling with the outside world. She said, "Look at the facts. I have lost everything. It is a cruel world. I cannot pay my bills. I do not pray, for I have lost hope." She was so absorbed and engrossed in the material world that she was completely oblivious to the internal cause of her situation. As we walked, she began to understand that she had to resolve the quarrel in her mind. No matter what your desire or ideal is, or as you read this book, you will find some sort of idea in your mind opposed to it. For example, your idea may be of for health. Perhaps there are several thoughts as such in your mind simultaneously. I can't be healed. I have tried, but it is no use. It is getting worse. I do not know enough about spiritual mind healing. As you study yourself, you do not have a tug of war in your mind like this. Don't you have a tug of war in your mind like this girl? You will find environment and external affairs challenging your desire of expression, wealth, and peace of mind. True prayer is a mental marriage feast, and it teaches us how to resolve the mental conflict. In prayer, you write what you believe in your own mind. Emerson said, "A man is what he thinks all day long. You become what you think of all the time." I used to say this in book one, right? You become what you think about most of the time. Whatever you think about most of the time, that's what you become, right? So you literally, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. A man is what he thinks all day long. By your habitual thinking, you make your own mental laws of belief. By repeating a certain train of thought, you establish definite opinions and beliefs in the deeper mind called the subconscious. Then such mental acceptances, beliefs, and opinions direct and control all your outer actions. To understand this and begin to apply it is the first step in changing water to wine, or changing lack and limitation into abundance and opulence. Right? The man who is unaware of his inner spiritual powers is therefore subject to race beliefs, lack, and limitation. Open your Bible now and perform your first miracle as this beauty operator did. You can do it. If you merely read the Bible as a historical event, you will miss the spiritual, mental, scientific view of the laws of the mind which we are concerned in this book. Let us take this passage for example. "And on the third day, there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there." Galilee means your mind or your conscience. Canaan means your desire. The marriage is purely mental, or the subjective embodiment of your desire. The whole beautiful drama of prayer is a psychological one in which all the characters are mental states, feelings, and ideas within you. One of the meanings of Jesus is illuminated reason. The mother of Jesus means the feeling, moods, and emotions which possess us. I'm gonna slow down, man, because growing up the way I grew up, obviously I know this story. I understand. I've read most of the Bible. I know all the parables, etc., etc. I was pretty much raised in the church. And it was a Pentecostal church at that. And Pentecostals have this thing about, the revealed words. They like to get deep. But to meet I've never met anyone so different like Dr. Murphy. So before we do this, for our brothers and sisters in the podcast who are not necessarily Christians, please do stick around. There's a lot of value in all of this stuff for you, right? This is all about your money at the end of the day. So please stick around and do learn with me. But let me just quickly give you an outside summary. There's a wedding. It's in Galilee. It's one of Jesus' first miracles in the Bible, right? And I actually like talking to atheists who don't believe in God and stuff, because we get to challenge each other. And I really hope no one signs off because this man is quoting the Bible. You would miss the bigger part of the lesson here, right? So in this wedding, wine finishes, it runs dry. And obviously, people want to celebrate and drink their wine. So Jesus's mother, Mary, says, "Man, do something, right? Wine is finished." Now, Dr. Murphy is saying, "Look, man, let's really look at the story. We want to extract the lessons, right? We want to extract the lessons. So we're gonna really give everything its actual meaning in the path that we are on here, which is the road to riches." So he says, so I'll read it again. Right. On the third day, there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Galilee, which is the location of the marriage, means your mind. Galilee means your mind or consciousness, right? Canaan means your desire, okay? And yes, you can derive these meanings, by the way. You can look up these words in the Hebrew context, which is one of the most original languages in what the Bible was written in, to get a real definite meaning. All right, so just so that there are no debates, right? The marriage is purely mental, or the subjective embodiment of your desire, right? So the marriage in this case is purely mental, or the subjective embodiment of your desire. This whole beautiful drama of prayer is a psychological one, in which all characters are mental states, feelings, and ideas within you. Just a kind reminder that a page before all of this, he kept saying true prayer is a marriage feast, right? So that stuff's going to come together now. One of the meanings of Jesus is illuminated or illuminate reason. The mother of Jesus means the feelings and moods of emotions which possess us. So Mary, Jesus' mother, represents our feelings, our moods, our attitudes, which generally control us, which possess us. However, one of the meanings of Jesus is illuminated reason, right? Let me just quickly pop this word on Google. Because I don't think I'm pronouncing correctly. Illumine. Illumine, all right, you guys heard that. I hope you did. And the meaning of that particular word is to lighten up, to bring, so reason, right? So yeah, okay, fine. So we're all on the same page. And on both, Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. Your disciples are your inner powers, right? So in this example, your disciples are your inner powers and faculties, enabling you to realize your desires. Your inner powers and faculties enabling you to realize your desires. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus said unto him, "They have no wine." Wine, as we have stated, represents the answered prayer of the manifestation of your desire and ideals in life. Remember, water and wine, turning water into wine in the previous page. Water is your subconscious controlling the flow, whereas wine is the realization of your desires. So now you can now see this in an everyday drama taking place in your own life. When you wish to accomplish something, as this girl did, namely finding work, supply, and a way out of your problem, suggestions of lack come to you, right? Suggestions and lack come to you, such as, "There is no hope. All is lost. I can't accomplish it. It is hopeless." This is the voice from the outside world saying to you, "They have no wine," which is what Mary said to Jesus. Or, "Look at the facts." This is your feeling of want, limitation, or bondage speaking. How do you meet the challenge of circumstances and conditions? By now, you are getting acquainted with the laws of the mind, which are as follows. The laws of the mind are as follows: as I think and feel inside, so is my outside world, i.e., my body, finances, environment, social position, and all phases of external relationship to the world and to men. Your internal mental movements and imaginary govern and control and direct the external plane in your life. The Bible says, "As he thinketh in his heart, so is he." The heart of a Chaldean word meaning the subconscious mind. So the here, as he thinketh in his heart, meaning as he thinketh in his subconscious mind, so is he, because you become what you think about most of the time. Right. Now, meaning the subconscious mind. In other words, your thought must reach the subjective levels by engaging the power of your subliminal self. Guys, there is so much. I mean, we'll do Dr. Asaf's book for those of you who are not Christian and are not vibing with the stuff. There is a lot of data, social, scientific, natural scientific data that completely matches with what we're talking about here. The quickest hack in your life: trauma, healing, wealth, self doubt, esteem, is simply reprogramming your subconscious mind. I mean, I don't want to get all biblical all through and through, but there's another phrase which I don't know, you might bring up later on, which talks about the renewal of your mind. You have to work on this stuff. I'm just trying to emphasize what he's emphasizing. Now, thought and feeling are your destiny. Thought charged with feeling and interest is always subjectified and becomes manifest in your world. A thought charged with feeling, a thought charged with feeling. This is a hack for visualization. And interest is always subjected and becomes manifest in your world. Prayer is a marriage of thought and feeling, or your idea and emotion. This is what the marriage feast relates. Any idea or desire of the mind felt as true comes to pass, whether it is good or bad or indifferent. Knowing the law now, that what you imagine and feel in your mind, you will express, manifest, or experience in the outside, enables you to begin to discipline your mind. He's saying, look, if you're part of the podcast, if you're reading this book, and you now know the law, that should be enough to get you to start being disciplined. Knowing this law, right? The law of the mind, right? Remember, we did the law of the mind now. Knowing the law of the mind now, right? That what you imagine and feel in your mind will express, manifest, or experience in the outside, enables you to begin to discipline your mind. When the suggestion of lack and fear, doubt, or despair comes, they have no wine, right? When that starts to come to your mind, immediately reject it mentally by focusing your attention at once on the answered prayer or the fulfillment of your desire. I don't really do this often now, but back then, when my bills would come and my trading account was facing the other way, negative, blown, and the bills had arrived, and there was no capital to trade, and there was no trading psychology. Even if there was capital to trade, my only defense was to spend more time reaffirming my mind. My only defense was, at the end of the day, I don't know, I can't fix it. I'm just gonna trust and remain grateful to the universal power. And he's saying, when the suggestion of lack, fear, doubt, or despair comes, right, to your mind, immediately reject it mentally by focusing your attention at once on the answered prayer or the fulfillment of your desire. The statements given in the Bible from John 2, my hour is not yet come, and the woman, what have I to do with thee, are figuratively Idomaniac Oriental expressions. As we paraphrase these questions, woman means the negative feeling that you indulge in. These negative suggestions have no power or reality because there is nothing to back them up. All your anxiety or your fear of the future, your fear of not making it, your fear of always being broke, because it has not yet happened and it's a futuristic fear, they have no power or reality because there is nothing to back them up, right? A suggestion of lack has no power. The power is resident in your own thought and feeling. What does God mean to you? God is the name given to the one spiritual power. God is the one invisible source from which all things flow. Invisible source, invisible substance, the invisible thinking substance, right? From which all things flow. When your thoughts are constructive, the universe, when your thoughts are constructive and harmonious, the spiritual power being responsive to your thought flows as harmony, health, and abundance. When your thoughts are constructive and harmonious, the spiritual power being responsive to your thought flows as harmony, health, and abundance. Practice the wonderful discipline of completely rejecting every thought of want by immediately recognizing the availability of spiritual power. Its response to your constructive thoughts and imaginary, then you will be practicing the truth found in these words. Woman, what have you to do with thee? Remember, woman here is just a metaphoric representation, right, of lack. Like it's a suggestion of lack. So what does lack have to do with me? Is basically what you're saying. We read, my hour is not yet come. This means that while you have not yet reached a conviction or a positive state of mind, you know you are on your way mentally, right? You know you've started this journey with the podcast. You're on your way mentally because you are engaging your mind on the positive ideals, goals, as well as enhancing the objectives of life, right? And just so we're clear, guys, these two lines are from the story of Galilee. I see it didn't link the story here. So when Mary comes to Jesus to say, look, man, there's no wine, people are, need wine, please make a plan. What Jesus says is to woman, what have I to do with thee? What have I to do with thee? You know my hour has not yet come. So Jesus was telling Mary, like, chill, dude, my hour has not yet come. Right. So the fact that there is now lack of wine at the wedding has nothing to do with me. It's not my problem. The fact that I can't pay my bills today has nothing to do with me. Right. I'm not gonna get really bogged down into that current perceptive of lack in my life. My hour has not yet come. And he says, when we read my hour is not yet come, this means that while you have not yet reached a conviction or a positive state of mind, you know you're on your way mentally because you are engaging your mind on the positive ideals, goals, as well as enhancing your objectives life, which, not to be a stickler, I want to bring us back to chapter 1 when he says this is a better way to affirm yourself. He says, rather than saying I am prosperous, I am wealthy, I am successful, because these statements create massive conflict, you say things like, I am growing in wealth and in wisdom every day. Every day my wealth is multiplied. You know your hour is not yet come, but you're on that positive road to it. I am advancing, growing and moving forward financially. These are the similar statements which would not create conflict in the mind. So you see, Jesus did something similar in the story. Now, whatever the mind dwells upon, it multiplies. Guys, this is so important. It multiplies, it magnifies, and it causes it to grow until finally the mind becomes qualified with the state of consciousness. You are then conditioned positively, whereas before you were conditioned negatively. The spiritual man in prayer moves from the mood of want to the mood of confidence, peace, and trust in the spiritual power within himself. Since his trust and faith are in the spiritual power, I'm going to start again. The spiritual man in prayer moves from mood of want to the mood of confidence, peace, and trust in the spiritual power within himself. Since his trust and faith are in spiritual power, his mother, which represents moods and feeling, registers a feeling of triumph or victory. This will bring about the solution to the answer to your prayer. The water pots in the story from the Bible refer to the mental cycles that man goes through in order to bring about the subjective realization of his ideas. The water pots, they were empty at that particular time. Water pots in the story from the Bible refer to the mental cycles that man goes through in order to bring about the subjective realization of his desire. The length of time may be a moment, hour, week, month, depending on your faith. You remember I said yesterday, Jesus used to say this thing, like according to your faith. So how long will it take? How long will it take, Leroy? I've been trading for 5 years. I want to be a millionaire. How long will it take? The length of time may be a moment, hour, week, or month, depending on your faith and state of consciousness of the student. So for traders, don't worry, I've got a trading psychology course for you coming up, because we gotta fix the mind when it comes to trading, right? But for everyone else who's not even a trader, wherever you are in your life, your business, it's literally dependent on your faith and the state of consciousness of the student. You can quickly ignite your faith by being fixated on a thought over and over again, up until that is all you think about. Napoleon Hill called it being obsessed with a burning desire. You can fix that quickly. That allows you to really start to program your consciousness. Now, in prayer, we must cleanse our mind of false beliefs, fear, doubt, and anxiety by becoming completely detached from the evidence of sense that is the external world. In the peacefulness, quietude of your mind, when you have stilled the wheels of your mind, meditate. Once again, he's telling you how to visualize. Meditate on the joy of the answered prayer until that inner certitude comes. Indeed, you know that you know. When you have succeeded in being one with your desire, you have succeeded in the mental marriage or in the union of your feelings with your idea. I am sure you wish to be married, which means one with, right? So you want to be married with health. You want to be married with harmony. You want to be married with success. Remember, marriage in this old school biblical sense is when the two become one flesh, right? Is to become one. So you want to be married with health, harmony, success, as also achievement in your mind at this moment. Every time you pray, you are trying to perform the marriage feast of Canaan, the realization of your desire or ideals. You want to be mentally identified with the concepts of peace, success, well-being, and perfect health. Every time you pray, you are trying to perform the marriage feast of Canaan, which is the realization of your desire or ideals. You want to be mentally identified with the concepts of peace, success, well-being, and perfect wealth. They filled them up to the brim, the water tanks. They filled them up to the brim. 6 water pots represent your mind in spiritual as well as mental creative activity. You must fill your mind to the brim. They filled the, guys, this is so good. I mean, my goodness, it's just, I don't know who's watching, who's listening, but if you've known this story and you finally meet someone who really unpacks it and links it to your mind, it is, I can't help but get overwhelmed about how good this is. I'm going to have to reread this book by myself later on. And I'll suggest you do the same. I'll suggest this is one of the shortest books we'll ever read, that you study it page by page until you really get it. I'll try not to stop. It's just so exciting. It's so good. I'm sure you wish to be married with one, right? Okay, no. They filled them up to the brim. The 6 water pots represent your mind and spiritual as well as mental creative activity. You must fill your mind to the brim, meaning you must be fulfilled. When you succeed in filling your mind with the idea you wish to accomplish, you must thoroughly fill your mind with the idea you wish to accomplish or express. You are full to the brim, then you cease praying about it. You feel its reality in your mind. You know it is a finished state of consciousness. You are at peace about it, right? So he's simply saying you're going to have to do a lot of meditating on that particular desire until you fill your mind to the brim. At some point in time, when you finally fill your mind to the brim, the idea you wish to accomplish or express, and you are full to the brim, then you cease praying about it, meditating about it, the marriage of fists, right? Because you feel its reality in your mind. You are absolutely convinced. Earlier on, he said, you know that you know, right? You get to a point where your inner, he says, when you've stilled it, you'll get to a point where your inner certitude comes, and indeed you know that whenever you have succeeded in being one with your desire, you have succeeded in the mental marriage or in the union of your feelings with your idea. My goodness gracious, this is so good. It's so unfortunate that Dr. Murphy is late. I would have loved to interview him. Right now, and he said unto them, so the story is continuing. Right, so they filled up the brim, and then he said unto them, draw out now. Right, so he's talking to his disciples, right? Remember, your disciples are your inner faculties that help you. He said to them, draw out now and bear unto the governor of the feast. Draw out now and bear unto the governor of the feast. Whatever is impregnated in your subconscious mind is always objectified on the screen of space. Consequently, when we enter a state of conviction that our prayer is answered, we have given the command, bear unto the governor of the feast. You are always governing your mental feast. You are always governing your mental feast. During the day, thousands of thoughts, suggestions, opinions, sights, and sounds reach our eyes and ears. You can reject them as unfit for mental consumption or entertain them as you choose. Your conscious reasoning, intellectual mind is the governor of the feast. When you consciously choose to entertain, meditate, feast upon, and imagine your heart's desire as true, it becomes a living embodiment and a part of your mentality, so that your deeper self gives birth or expression to it. In other words, what is impressed subjectively is expressed objectively. Your senses or conscious mind see the materialization of your good attitude. When the consciousness mind comes aware of water made into wine, it becomes aware of your answered prayer. Water might be called also the invisible, formless spiritual power, unconditioned consciousness. Wine is conditioned consciousness. Wine is when your or the mind given birth to its beliefs as well as convictions. So water, right, is the unconditioned consciousness, the invisible, formless spiritual power, and then at some point in time, when it turns into wine, wine is conditioned consciousness, or the mind given birth to its beliefs as well as convictions. The servants which draw the water for you represent the mood of peace, confidence, and faith. Remember, it's just water, and all of a sudden, Jesus gives the instruction that, yeah, okay, fine, you fill the pots to the brim, now draw the water and go present it to the governor. And he's saying, when the servants are drawing the water, it represents the mood of peace and confidence, because everybody knows there was just water in those pots, but you have now been filled to the brim, right? So tell you what I do. I'll do a proper video about this for traders. Traders, these are my affirmation goals for the year. I record myself saying the stuff, and then I put like background music, Mozart, or you can even use frequencies. Like we'll talk about frequencies later, monotone meditation frequencies. And then I'm in my office, not here, but I'm in my work office, my trading desk, anyways, for anywhere between 9 to 10 to 11 hours a day, and I just have that playing inside my ears. I have my own voice saying to me, I'm so happy and grateful that money comes to me in increasing quantities on a continuous basis. I believe this is true because it has already happened. I have 743,000, 500,000 US dollars by the 25th of December. And my affirmation is on a loop. Boop. For the first hour of the day. Boop. For the second hour of the day. Boop. For the third hour of the day. If on one of those days I have a big loss in my trading account, that lack, that woman who comes to me in my life and says, there's no wine. My response is, what have I to do with thee? My time has not come yet. 25 December is my time. I should have by then made 743,500 US dollars. And these targets of mine are not out of nowhere, right? They are being air. I watch what I did last year, and then I add 20% on top of that. Like, I need to do more. I need to do more. And the point is, I am completely programming my mind as I go about this whole thing. So now the servants which draw the water to you represent the mood of peace and confidence and faith. According to your faith or feeling, your good is attracted and is drawn to you. Cherish and fall in love with the spiritual principles which are discussed in this book. In the first recorded miracle of Jesus, you are told that prayer is a marriage feast, and your mind, the mind uniting with its desire. Prayer is a marriage feast, or a mind uniting with its desire. Love is the fulfilling of the law, right? Don't forget the law of the mind. Love is really an emotional attachment and a sense of oneness with your good. You must be true to that which you love. You must be loyal to your purpose or to your ideal. We are not being true to the one we love when we are flirting or mentally entertaining other marriages with fear, doubt, worry, anxiety, or false belief. Love is a state of oneness, a state of fulfillment. Refer to the book by the author Love is Freedom, right? When the simple drama was explained to the beauty operator mentioned above, she became rich mentally. Remember, there's a lady who lost everything in a salon. She understood this drama. She put it into practice in her life. This is how she prayed. She knew that the water, her own mind, would flow to fill up all the empty vessels in response to a new way of thinking. At night, this client became very quiet and still, relaxed her body, and began to use constructive imagery. The steps she used are as follows. First step, she began how to visualize. Guys, how to visualize. People, how to visualize. There are few people in the world. You Google visualization on YouTube. You hear, you watch videos. Very few of them break this stuff down step by step. Very few of them. Please, how to visualize. He gave you a good example in chapter 1. He's coming back to it again. Right. This is like not as just a story. This is literally stuff you have to do, right? How to visualize. Now, at night, she would quiet and still and relax her body and begin to use constructive imagery. These are the steps she followed. First step, she began to imagine the local bank manager was congratulating her on her wonderful deposits in the bank. She kept imagining that for about 5 minutes, right? She's broke. Nice idea recording the VN2. Yeah, absolutely, man. This has been my life's hack. This got me out of a lot of problems 3 years ago. I could never look back, right? I feed myself my own thoughts, so doesn't matter what happens. Appreciate the comments, by the way. Thank you for everyone who's watching and all that cool stuff, right? So it's been a fascinating thing. So number one, she imagined the local banker congratulating her on a wonderful deposit in the bank. Second step, in her imagination, she heard her mother saying to her, I am so happy about your wonderful new position. She continued to hear this in a happy, joyous way for about 3 to 5 minutes. Third step, she vividly imagined the writer was in front of her performing in her marriage ceremony. This woman heard me saying, as the officiating minister, I now pronounce you man and wife. Completing this routine, she went to sleep feeling fulfilled, full, sensing feeling within herself and joy and the answered prayer. Nothing happened for 3 weeks. In fact, things got much worse. The lack of wine in her life got much worse. But she persevered, refusing to take no for an answer. She knew that in order to grow spiritually, she too had to perform her first miracle by changing her fear to faith, her mood of lack to a mood of opulence and prosperity, and by changing consciousness, water, into the conditions and the circumstances and the experiences she wished to express. Consciousness, awareness, principle, spirit, or whatever name you give it, it is cause of all. It is the cause of all. It is the only presence of power. The spiritual power or spirit within us is the cause and the substance of all things. All things, birds, trees, stars, sun, moon, earth, gold, silver, and platinum, are its manifestation. It is the cause of substance of all things. There is none else. Understanding this, she knew that water, which is consciousness, would become supply in the form of money or a true place or a true expression for herself, health for a mother, as well as a companionship and fulfillment of life. She saw this simple yet profound truth in the twinkling of her eye as she said to me, I accept my good. She knew that nothing is hidden from us. All of God is within us, waiting for us to discover our discovery and inquiry. In less than a month, this girl got married. The writer performed the ceremony. I pronounced the words she heard me say over and over again in a meditative, relaxed state. I now pronounce you man and wife. So he's the officiated their wedding. Her husband gave her a check for $24,000 as a wedding present, as well as a trip around the world. Her new expression as a beauty operator was to beautify her home and her garden and make the desert of her mind rejoice and blossom. She changed water into wine. Water or a consciousness became charged or conditioned by a constant, true, happy imagery. These images, when sustained regularly, that's the trick. These images, when sustained regularly, systematically, along with faith and developing powers of the deeper mind, will come out of darkness, the subconscious mind, into light, objectified onto the screen of space, your reality. There is one important rule: do not expose this newly developed film to the shattering light of fear, doubt, dissonance, or worry. Whenever worry or fear knocks at your door, immediately turn to the picture you developed in your mind and say to yourself, a beautiful picture is being developed now in the dark house of my mind. Mentally pour that picture, your feeling of joy and faith and understanding. You know you have operated a psychological spiritual law: for what is impressed shall be expressed. It is wonderful. Following the following is sure certain way for developing, as also manifesting all material riches. Supply you need all the days of your life. If you apply this formula sincerely with true honesty, you should be amply rewarded on the external plane. I will illustrate this by telling you of a man who came to see me in London in desperate financial straits. He was a member of the Church of England who had studied the work of his subconscious mind to some extent. I told him to say frequently during the day, God is the source of my supply. All my needs are met, and at every moment of time and point in space. Think also of all the animal life in this world and all the galaxies of the space, which now are being taken care of by the infinite intelligence. Notice how nature is lavish and extravagant, bountiful. Think of fish of the sea, which are all sustained, as well as the birds of the air. He began to realize that since he was born, he had been taken care of, fed by his mother, clothed by his father. That is washed over by tender, loving parents. This man got a job and was paid in a wonderful way. He reasoned that it was illogical to assume that the principle of life, which gave him life, also took care of him, would suddenly cease to respond to him. He realized that he had cut off his own supply by resenting his employer, self condemnation, criticism of himself, and by his own sense of unworthiness. He had psychologically severed the cord which joined him to the infinite source of all things, the indwelling spirit of life principle called by some consciousness or awareness. Man is not fed like birds. He must consciously commune with the inner dwelling power and the presence to receive guidance, strength, vitality, that is, all things necessary to the fulfillment of his needs. This is the formula which he used to change water into wine of abundance to achieve financial success. He realized God of the spiritual power with him was the cause of all. Furthermore, he realized that if he could sell himself the idea that wealth was his divine right, he would manifest abundance of supply. The affirmation he used was: God is the source of my supply. All my financial and other needs are met at every moment of time and point of space. There is always a divine surplus. The simple statement, repeated frequently, knowingly, and the intelligent conviction are conditioned his mind to a prosperity consciousness, right? So frequency is very important. All he had to do was to sell himself his positive idea. In the same way, a good salesman has to sell the merits of his product. Such a person is convinced of the integrity of his company, the high quality of the product, the good service which will give the customer the fact that the price is right. I told him whenever negative thoughts come to his mind, which would happen, not to fight or quarrel with them in any way, but simply go back to the spiritual mental formula and repeat it quietly and lovingly to himself. Negative thoughts came to him in avalanches at times, in the form of flood of negativity. Each time he met them with a positive, firm, loyal conviction: God supplies all my needs. There is divine surplus in my life. He said that as he drove his car. He went through his day's routine. A host of sundry malicious negative concepts crowded his mind from time to time, such as there is no hope, you are broke. Each time such negative thoughts came, he refused their mental admissions by turning to the eternal source of wealth, health, all things which he knew to be his own spiritual awareness. Definitely, most positively, he claimed, God is the source of my supply, and supply is mine now. Or there is a divine solution. God's wealth is my desire. God's wealth is my wealth, with other affirmative positive statements which charged his mind with hope, faith, expectancy. Ultimately, his conviction in an ever flowing fountain of riches supplied all his needs, copiously, joyously, and endlessly. The negative flood thoughts came to him as often as 50 times in an hour. Each time he refused to open the door of his mind to these gangsters, assassins, and thieves, which he knew would only rob him of peace, wealth, success, all good things. Instead, he opened the door of his mind to the idea of God's eternal life principle of supplying, flowing through him as wealth, health, energy, power, and all things necessary to lead a full and happy life here. As he continued to do this, the second day was not so many thieves knocked at his door. The third day, the flow of negative visitors was less. The fourth day, they came intimately hoping for admission, but receiving the same mental response: no entrance. I accept only thoughts or concepts which activate, heal, bless, or inspire my mind. He reconditioned his conscious mind or mind to a wealth consciousness. The prince of this world cometh and had nothing in me. This conveys in your mind the negative thoughts such as fear, lack, worry, anxiety came, but they received no response from his mind. He was now immune, God intoxicated, seized by divine faith in an ever expanding consciousness of abundance and financial supply. The man did not lose everything, neither did he go into bankruptcy. He was given extended credit, his business improved, new doors opened up, and he prospered. Remember, always in the inner prayer process, must you be loyal to your ideal. Remember, always in the inner in the prayer process, you must be loyal to your ideal, purpose, and objective. Many people fail to realize wealth and financial success because they pray two ways. They affirm God is their supply and that they are divinely prospered, but a few minutes later, they deny they are good by saying, I cannot pay this bill. I cannot afford this, that, or the other thing. Or they say to themselves, a jinx is following me. I can't even make ends meet. I never have enough to go around. All such statements are highly destructive and neutralize your positive prayers. This is what is called praying in two ways. You must be faithful to your plan or goal. You must be true to your knowledge of the spiritual power. Cease making negative marriages, i.e., uniting with negative thoughts, fears, and worries. Prayer is like a captain directing the course of this ship. You must have destination. You must know where you are going. The captain of the ship, knowing the laws of negativity, regulates his course accordingly. If the ship is turned from its course by storms or unruly waves, he calmly redirects it along its true course. You are the captain on the bridge, and you are given the orders in the way of thoughts, feelings, opinions, beliefs, moods, mental tones. Keep your eye on the beam. You go where your vision is. You go where your vision is. Cease, therefore, looking at all the obstacles, delays, and impediments that would cause you to go off course. Be definite and positive. decide where you are going, know your mental attitude is the ship, which will take you from the mood of lack and limitation to the mood and feeling of opulence, and to the belief in the inevitable law of God working for you. Quimby, who was a doctor, a wonderful student and a teacher of the mental spiritual laws of the mind, said, "Man acts as he is acted upon. What moves you now? What is it that determines your response to life? The answer is as follows: your ideas, beliefs, and opinions activate your mind and condition you to the point that you become a Quimby stated an expression of your beliefs. This illustrates the truth of Quimby's statement: man is belief expressed. Another popular statement of Quimby was, "Our minds mingle like atmospheres, and each person has his identity in that atmosphere. When you are a child, you were subject to the moods and feelings, beliefs, and the general mental atmosphere of the home. The fears, the anxieties, the superstition, as well as the religious faith, right, and convictions of your parents were impressed onto your mind. Let us say the child had been brought up in a poverty-stricken home, which there was never enough to go, around for. Financially speaking, he heard constantly the complaint of lack and limitation. You could say, like Salter in his condition reflex therapy, that the child was conditioned to poverty. The young man may have a poverty complex based on his early experiences, and a lot of us need to reflect on that. You remember Ken Wanda spoke about changing your money blueprint. Your money blueprint is, first of all, accepting that you were raised how you were raised by whoever raised you, and acknowledge how you were raised. How you were raised around money. Was a super budgets because things were super bad? Did you go to a public school versus a private school? Did you always want new shoes but couldn't get them because money was tight? Were your parents abusive with money, like so stingy, didn't want to give you tuck shop money even if they could, and you could see that they could? We're all raised differently, but you need to have a good context of your money blueprint. Ken Honda says you also need to then move to quickly heal your money wounds. Forgive, let go, heal your money wounds, because you can't just change blueprints if you're still holding on to them, right? A blueprint is literally the inner infrastructure of your being, your subconscious mind. So you got to heal those money wounds. And he's saying here that, if you talk to an actual psychologist, you could actually say children who are raised under constant complaint of lack and limitation, when it's now time to pay school fees and you hear your parents saying your school is so expensive, you better pass because your school is so expensive. With small phrases like that can govern the whole of your life, right? You can't, the pressure to do well isn't for the fulfillment of your mind or what to study. You can't study drama because you'll never make any money in drama. Go be a lawyer. That's our money blueprint. Like, these are not small things. This is the power of hypnosis is everyday suggestions to your subconscious mind, until your subconscious mind believes that. And then your conscious mind acts on what your subconscious mind believes. So your money blueprint is very profound, man. You really have to investigate how you were raised when it comes to money, right? Growing up in the country, we were taught that, BMWs are cars driven by thieves. It's like, and so every time I need to go buy a car, I'll see a very, very nice BMW, very nice, and BMW has very, very nice cars. But because some silly story that my mom told me about two gangsters who were shooting people in a BMW, it had this notorious reputation in South Africa back in the 90s, anyways, right? So now I know better, but I won't. I won't even buy a BMW because somewhere at the back of my mind, I still associate BMW with that, and I don't want to be associated with that. So I run to Jaguar, right? So it's like, that's a silly example, but there are big money blueprints that govern us, right? These thought processes. And the psychology is saying, well, if you are raised under complaint and constant lack of limitation as a child, you could say, under reflex therapy, that the child has been conditioned. His flow, his water, his subconscious mind has been conditioned to poverty. The young man may have a poverty complex based on his early experiences, training, beliefs, but he can rise above any situation, become free, and this is done through the power of prayer, that marriage festival. Now, I knew a young boy, age 17, who was born in a place called Hell's Kitchen in New York City. He listened to some lectures I was given in Stanway Hall in New York at the time. This boy realized that he had been a victim of negative, destructive thinking and that he did not redirect his mind along constructive channels. The whole mind, with his fears, failures, and hates and jealousies, would move in and control him. Man acts as he's acted upon, and we are acted upon by our conscious thoughts and beliefs. Now, we are immersed in the race mind, which believes in sickness, death, misfortune, accident, failures, disease, diverse disasters. Follow the biblical injunction: come out from among them and be separated. Identify yourself mentally and emotionally with the eternal events which have stood the test of time. This young man decided to think and plan for himself. He decided to take the royal road to riches by accepting God's abundance here and now, and to fill his mind with spiritual concepts and perceptions. He knew as he did this, he would automatically crowd out the mind of all negative patterns. He adopted a simple process called scientific imagination. He had a wonderful voice, but it was not cultivated or developed. I told him the image he gave attention to in his mind will be developed in his deeper mind and come to pass. He understood this to be the law of the mind, a law of action and reaction, the response of the deeper mind to the mental picture held in the conscious mind. This young man would sit down quietly in his room at home, relax his whole body, and vividly imagine himself singing before a microphone. He would reach out for the feel of the instrument. He would hear me congratulate him as his wonderful contract and tell him how magnificent his voice was in his imagination. By giving his attention and devotion to this mental image regularly and systematically, a deep impression was made on his subconscious mind. A short time elapsed, and an Italian voice instructor in New York gave him free lessons several times a week because he saw his possibilities. He got a contract which sent him abroad to sing in the salons of Europe, Asia, South Africa, and other places. His financial worries were over, for he also received wonderful salary. His hidden talents and the ability to release them were his real riches. These talents and powers within all of us are God given. Let us release them. Did you ever say to yourself, how can I be more useful to my fellow creatures? How can I contribute more to humanity? A minister friend of mine told me that in his early days, he had his church suffered financially. His technical process was a simple prayer which worked wonders for him. God reveals to me better ways to present the truths of God to my fellow creatures. Money poured in, the mortgage was paid in a few years, and he was never worried about money since. As you read this chapter, you have now learned that the inner feelings, moods, and beliefs of man always control and govern his external world. His inner feelings and moods and beliefs of man always control and govern his external world. The inner movements of the mind control the outer movements. They change To change the outside, you must change the inside. As in heaven, so on earth, or as in my mind or consciousness, so as it is in my body, circumstances, and environment. The Bible says, there is nothing hidden that shall not be revealed. For example, if you're sick, you are revealing a mental and emotional pattern in the cause. If you are upset or if you receive tragic news, notice how you reveal it in your face, your eyes, your gestures, your tonal qualities, also in your posture. As a matter of fact, your whole body reveals your inner distress. You could, of course, through mental discipline and prayer, remain absolutely poised, serene, and calm refusing to betray your hidden feelings or mental states. You could order the muscles of your body to relax and be quiet and be still. They would have to obey you. Your eyes, your face, your lips would not betray any sign of grief, anger, or despondence. On the other hand, with little discipline, through prayer meditation, you could reverse the entire picture. Even though you had received disturbing news, regardless of its grave nature, you could show and exhibit joy, peace, relaxation, and a vibrant nature. No one would ever know that you were the recipient of so called bad news. Regardless of what kind of news you receive today, you could go to the mirror, look at your face, lips, and your gestures as you tell yourself and imagine you've heard the news and you're receiving a vast fortune. Dramatize it, feel it, thrill it, and notice how your whole body responds to your inner thrill. You can reverse any situation through prayer. Busy your mind with the concepts of peace, success, wealth, and happiness. Identify yourself with these ideas mentally, emotionally. Get a picture of yourself as you want to be. Retain that image. Sustain it with joy, faith, and expectancy. Finally, you'll succeed in the experience of manifestation. I say to people who consult with me regarding financial lack to marry wealth. Some see the point, others don't. As all Bible students know, your wife is what you are mentally joined to, united with, and are one with. Marry wealth. In other words, what you convince and believe, you give conception. You believe the world is cold, cruel, harsh, that it is a dog eat dog way of life. That is your concept. You are married to it. You will have children or issue by that marriage. The children from such a mental marriage or belief will be the experiences and conditions and circumstances together with other events in your life. All experiences and reactions to life will be the image of likeness in the ideas fathered to them. Look at the many wives the average man is living with, such as fear, doubt, anxiety, criticism, anger, jealousy. These play havoc in his mind. Marry wealth by claiming, feeling, and believing God supplies all my needs according to his riches and glory. Or take the other following statements and repeat it over and over again, knowingly, until your subconscious mind is conditioned by it or comes part of your meditation. I am divinely expressed and I have a wonderful income. I am divinely expressed and I have a wonderful income. Do not say this in a parrot like fashion, but know that you train your thought is being engraved in your deeper mind and that it becomes a conditioned state of consciousness. Let the phrase become meaningful to you. Pour life, love, and feeling onto it. Make it alive. One of my class students recently opened a restaurant. He phoned me saying that he got married to a restaurant. He meant that he had made up his mind to be very successful, diligent, and preserving, and to see that his business prospered. I mean, I can't tell you, I got married to the financial markets a long, long time ago. And I couldn't have made a better decision. I really couldn't. Anyways, this man's wife, like his mental wife, right, was his belief of the accomplishment of his desires and wish. Identify yourself with your aim in life and seize mental marriages with criticism, self-condemnation, anger, fear, and worry. Give attention to your chosen ideal. Give attention to your chosen ideal, being faithful and confident in the inevitable law of prosperity and success. You will accomplish nothing by loving your ideal 1 minute, uh, and denying it the next minute. This is like mixing acid and alky. You will get an innate substance. In going along the royal road to riches, you must be faithful to your chosen ideal, your chosen wife. We find illustrations in the Bible relating to the same truths. For instance, Eve came out of Adam's Eve. Your rib is your concept, your desire, your idea, your plan, your goal, your aim in life. Eve means the emotion, feeling, nature of the inner tone. In other words, you must mother the idea. The idea must be mothered, loved, and felt as true in order to manifest in your real life. The idea is the father, the emotion is the mother. This is the marriage feast which is always taking place in your mind. The third element which entered in or was formed following the union of your desire and feeling is the neutral element. We may call it peace, for God is peace. The Bible says, and the government shall be on his shoulders. In other words, let divine wisdom be your guide. Let the subjective wisdom within you lead, guide, govern you in all your ways. Turn over your request to this indwelling presence, knowing in your heart and soul that it will dissipate, or the indwelling presence, knowing in your heart and soul that it will dissipate the anxiety and heal the wound and restore your soul to equanimity and tranquility. Open your mind and heart and say, God is my pilot. He leads me. He prospers me. He is my counselor. Let your prayer be night and morning. I am a channel through which God's riches flow ceaselessly, copiously, and freely. Write that prayer in your heart, inscribe it in your mind. Keep on the beam of God's glory. The man who does not know the inner workings of his own mind is full of burdens, anxieties, and worries. He is not learned how to cast his burden onto the dwelling presence and go free. The Zen monk was asked by his disciple, "What is truth?" He replied in a symbolic way by making the bag of his back and placing it on the ground. The disciple then asked him, "Master, how does it work?" Then the Zen monk, still silent, placed the bag on his back and walked on down the road singing to himself. The bag is your burden or your problem. You cast it on the subjective wisdom which knows all, and as the know how of the accomplishment, it knows only the answer. Placing the bag again on his back means, though I still have the problem, I now have mental rest and relief from the burden because I have invoked the divine wisdom on my behalf. Therefore, I sing the song of triumph, knowing that the answer to my prayer is on the way. I sing for the joy that is set before me. It is wonderful. Every man at the beginning doth set forth wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse, but thou hast. Sorry, I'm going to read that again. Every man, and we're moving towards the end. Every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse, but thou hast kept the good wine until now. So this was like a quote, right? So every man at the beginning had wine, but now that everyone is drunk, right? Then you're now starting to bring the good wine. So this is a direct quote actually from that story, the Bible. So you see, he's working through this canon miracle, the miracle of the first wine nicely. The last time we quoted from that story was when the servants were now drawing from the full brim to go present to the governor. And now one of them, maybe it's the governor saying this, like, every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, right? So every man at the beginning of these events always gives us good wine. And when men are well drunk, then that which is worse. We're already so drunk, but thou hast kept the good wine until now. This is true for every man when he first enters a knowledge of the laws of the mind. Right, so this might be true for a lot of people in the podcast, which is awesome. He sets out with high spirits and ambitions. He is new. He is the new broom which sweeps clean and which is full of good intentions. Oftentimes, he forgets the source of the power. He does not remain faithful to the principle with him, which is scientific and effectual. What we're doing is scientific and effectual because we already know this because we just did the science of getting rich. That he would lift him out of his negative experiences and set him on the high road to freedom, peace of mind. He begins to indulge mentally and emotionally with ideas and thoughts extraneous to his announced aim and goal. In other words, he is not faithful to his ideal or wife. So he's saying, look, man, if it's your first time coming across the laws of the mind, don't fall for this trip. You set out with high ambitions because you're like, oh my God, my mind can do all these things. This is amazing. But as you're going down that road, as you act as the broom, he's the new broom which sweeps and cleans, right? Sweeps and cleans all the negativity, anxiety in your mind. At some point in time, right, all his good intentions, he starts to forget the source of his power, right? And he does not remain faithful to the principle within him, which is scientific and effectual, that would lift him out of his negative experiences and set him on the high road to freedom and peace. What happens is along the way, he begins to indulge mentally and emotionally with ideas and thoughts extraneous to his announced aim and goal. In other words, he's not faithful. He stops being faithful. I don't want to do sound bites because we got 1 page left and it's been quite a long recording. But one of the things I've seen as a trading coach is it's one thing to create a good course that teaches people how to trade, which is what we have now. And then it's another thing to watch people learn the rules and like literally walk you through the market so you can actually see them. But it's always fascinating, and I know why. I know why trading is like that. But it's always fascinating that despite the 10 commandments, so to speak, of supply and demand and all the rules and all the exact time frames and the flow of money, that because people are very become impatient because the anxiety of financial stuff, the scratch, when am I going to get into a trade again? And I can use this example very well because this is my field, right? But all the other thoughts that have nothing to do with the markets start to influence bad trading decisions. And so he's saying, don't forget the source. Don't forget the scientific approach to getting rich. Never forget where everything begins. Because once you do, you start becoming unfaithful and it is not ideal to your idea or to your wife. Know that the subjective or deeper self within you will accept your request and begin the great fabricator. It will begin it to pass in its own way. All you do is release your request with faith. All you do is release your request with faith and confidence in the same way you would cast a seed on the ground. Your mail or mail a letter to your friend, knowing the answer would come. Did you ever go between two great rocks and listen to the echo of your voice? This is the way the life principle within you answers. You will hear the echo of your own voice. Your voice is your inner mental movement of the mind, your inner psychological journey where you feasted mentally on an idea until you were full, then you rested. Knowing this law and how to use it, be sure you never become drunk with power, arrogance, pride, or conceit. Use the Lord to bless, heal, inspire, lift others as well as yourself. This is actually quite important. None of these authors have literally kept saying you have to be harmonious with positivity. You can't use your wealth to destroy because it affects the energy. Ken Honda said, positively charged flow is so much better than negatively charged flow. Right, so man misuses the law by selfishly taking advantage of his fellow men. We don't compete. Book number 1. If you do, you hurt and attract loss to yourself. Power, security, and riches are not to be obtained externally. Competition externally, rather inward. Right? They come from the treasure house of eternity within. You should realize that the good wine is always present, for God is eternal now. Regardless of present circumstances, you can improve your good is ever present by detaching yourself mentally from the problem, going on the high watch and going about your Father's business. To go on a high watch is to envision your good, to dwell on the new concept yourself, to become married to it and sustain the happy mood by remaining faithful of faith every step of the way, knowing that the wine of joy, the answered prayer, is on the way. Now is the day of salvation. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Thou hast kept the good wine until now. And to the last page of the entire book. You can This moment travels psychologically in your mind and enter mentally through divine imagination into any desired state. The wealth, health, or invention you wish to introduce are invincible at first. Everything comes out of the invincible. The wealth, the health, and everything else in your imagination you wish is invincible at first. It is invincible at first. It does not exist in the real. Everything comes out of the invincible. You must subjectively possess riches before you can objectively possess wealth. The feeling of wealth produces wealth, for wealth is a state of consciousness. A state of consciousness is what you think, feel, believe, and mentally give consent to. A teacher in California receiving over five to $6,000 a year looked in a window at a beautiful coat that was priced $8,000. She said, "It would take me years to save the amount of money I could never afford it. Oh, how I wanted." She listened to our lectures on Sunday mornings. By ceasing to marry these negative concepts, she learned that she could have the coat or car or anything she wished without hurting anybody or on the face of the earth. I told her to imagine she had the coat on, to feel its beautiful fur, and to get the feel of it on her. She began to use the power of her imagination. Prior to sleep at night, she put the imaginary coat on and fondled it, caressed it like a child does with her doll. She continued to do this and finally felt the thrill of it all. She went to sleep every night wearing this imaginary coat and being happy in possessing it. 3 months went by and nothing happened. She was about to waver, but she reminded herself that it is a sustained mood which, which demonstrates, "He who perseveres to the end shall be saved." The solution will come to the person who does not waver, but always goes about with the perfume of his presence with him. The answer comes to the man who walks in the light that it is done. It is already done. You're always using the perfume of his presence when you sustain the happy, joyous mood and expectancy, knowing your good is on the way. You sow it in the seed and you know that you'll see it in the scene. The sequel to the teacher's drama of the mind is interesting. One Sunday morning after a lecture, a man accidentally stepped on her toe, apologized profusely, asked her where she lived, and offered to drive her home. She accepted gladly. Shortly after, he proposed marriage, gave her a beautiful diamond ring, and said to her, "I saw the most wonderful coat. You would simply look radiant wearing it." It was the coat she admired 3 months previously. The salesman said over 100 wealthy women looked at the coat, admired it immensely, but for some reason selected another garment. Through your capacity to choose, imagine the reality of what you have selected, and through faith and your perseverance, you can realize your goal in life. All the riches of heaven are here now within you, waiting to be released. Peace, joy, love, guidance, inspiration, God's will, and abundance all exist now. All that is necessary in order to express God's riches for you is for you to leave the present now, your limitation. Enter into the mental vision or picture, and in happy, joyous mood, become one with your ideal. Having seen and felt your good in moments of high exaltation, you know that in a little while you shall see your ideal objectively as you walk through time and space. As within, so without, as above, so below, as in heaven, so is on earth. In other words, you will see your beliefs expressed as man is belief expressed. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the podcast reading today. It is the end of book number 4, How to Attract Money by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Please let me know. I know if you're on Spotify, you can't really comment anyway, but do find us on social media. Find the 365 Trading Academy page and comment, or the YouTube channel and comment, and just let me know if this book was as impactful as I think it is. I'm so shocked that I'm still as excited as the first time I read this book. about a year or maybe 2 years ago in 2020. So it's what, 2 years ago now. I'm still absolutely drawn to this book, man. And we will be looking at a lot of Joseph Murphy's work as we go through this journey of programming the subconscious mind. I don't want to say much. It's been a beautiful read. Thank you for joining me. Shake my hand as usual, and I'll see you tomorrow. In the next episode, I have another book ready for us to get started. I've got these books lined up, man. We are going to read one chapter a day, every day, except for Mondays, because Mondays I do something else. I run a different type of reading that has got nothing to do with what we're doing here. But every day we'll do a chapter until we finish a book, and we'll keep reflecting, learning, and start to grow, right? The whole point of this is I hope you guys are growing in your knowledge. Don't just sit through these things, write stuff down and go practice it. You have the greatest advantage. You've been given an entire new blueprint for money. Absolutely pleasure. Shake my hand. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.